Flo Vilmano. She'll add to that. She's looking at the international papers. One story in the papers.
That's right. What is that story? Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. No idea.
It's, of course, D-Day, the decision day for Americans. That's what's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. Of course, Americans heading to the polls for that election that we've been reporting on for months, why not years. Now, the New York Times looks at the final frenzied hours of the campaign, the closing arguments, if you will, optimism from Hillary Clinton and darkness from Donald Trump. I guess that's a good summary for the campaign in general.
After a historically bitter presidential race, state officials, they're really kind of bracing themselves, aren't they, for possible chaos even at polling stations.
That's right. You can read more about that in the Washington Post today that talks about how state leaders and voting experts are preparing themselves for an unusual level of confusion and chaos. Now, we're talking about hours in waiting lines, essentially, to cast your vote, but also there are fears that there could be intimidation, particularly from Trump supporters. Now, while there is a lot of excitement expected at the polls, there's a very interesting article in Vox today that points out that many voters are going to sit this election out. In fact, if anything, if you look at history, about 80 to 100 million voting-age Americans won't vote today. Now, America's turnout rate, 53%, has been pretty stable for the last 40 years. It's actually one of the lowest in the developed world. Why don't Americans vote? Well, there are lots of reasons that you can read more about in Vox, but essentially, voter registration is often pretty complicated in the States, and many Americans just don't think their vote matters, and also the whole system depresses them.
Yeah, well, several papers also playing the betting game, if you like, trying to guess out who is actually going to win this incredibly tight race.
That's right. Now, there are countless forecasts and polls today. There was one article I found quite interesting. This is in The Independent. It's focusing on the fact that, what people are betting on. Bookmakers in the UK say that bettors are rushing towards Clinton. Now, what's interesting is a record number of people are betting on this election in the UK. Clinton is benefiting from a final boost in the polls, largely thanks to a surge in votes from Hispanic voters in early voting. This is a fascinating article in The New Yorker focusing on how Latinos are voting in record numbers in this election. Now, a lot of that is a backlash, of course, due to comments that Donald Trump made about immigrants and et cetera, Mexicans. Now, this could be really crucial for this election result. And I like this title here. Latino voters are showing Trump what it means to be an American.
Papers right around the world, of course, are really paying very close attention to what happens here.
That's right. Courrier International has an interesting round-the-world trip, if you want a summary of what different countries are thinking about this election. Mexico, unsurprisingly, is terrified by a Trump victory, and in fact, it has an emergency plan in case that happens. Let's take a look at what's happening in Russia. This is very interesting. Essentially, Russians want Trump to win. Now, that might not be surprising either. And this is a very interesting article about Russian state TV that, and how they're describing the American election, saying it's actually undemocratic. It's not fair. They've really framed the story of, a sinister and corrupt Hillary Clinton against a modest underdog billionaire, Donald Trump. Now, The Guardian, the British paper, couldn't have a more opposite view to all this. This is their editorial today. You can see very clear what they think. Trump is a threat to America and the world. Both America and the world deserve better. Hillary Clinton is better, so vote for Clinton.
OK, let's move back stateside. Many people, I have to say, Flo and I included, are just very happy that this brutal campaign is finally drawing to a close. It does feel like it's gone on for months.
It has, and you should check out this cartoon. This is one of my favorite things today. This is a cartoon by Chapat in the New York Times depicting pre-election jitters. Keep calm and take cover. You can see this couple hiding behind a sofa. Is it over yet?
That's me.
That's me as well. Now, the jitters might continue after the election, though. There's a very interesting front page for The New Yorker. Remember, this has come out before the election result, but it kind of works depending on, regardless of who wins. Oh, sweet Jesus, please God, no. Anything but that. Come on.
Whoever wins the election is going to have to deal with a very, very divided country, aren't they, Flo?
That's right. And some papers are trying to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. This is an article in the Washington Post that's interesting, that's focusing on how the next president can heal what it calls a broken America. And the Washington Post calls on empathy from whoever wins. Now, that's a liberal paper. Conservative papers are also trying to see a little bit of hope here. This is the Wall Street Journal seeking hope in the ruins of this Dispiriting campaign. And this paper hopes that whoever wins will listen. So lots of empathy and listening are needed. Now, if you're not sure how you're going to get through the next 24 hours, you could always play an election drinking game. These are very popular. There are several of them online. I picked out this one. This is from AM New York. Please play this after voting. Now, it's quite fun. Essentially anytime anything happens, you take a drink. If a swing state is called, if your friends start talking about moving to Canada, you take a drink. There's also a healthier option out there. It's called the workout game, and it involves push-ups instead of drinking. So you can see two very different versions of America in how we're going to deal with this election.
I like the drinking one, apart from we've got to be on air tomorrow. And
Could be complicated.
A bit of a problem. Flo looking at the international papers there. So, as the US prepares to vote, then we ask, where are voting patterns changing? We're going to be reporting in the next half hour from Colorado, which was a Republican bastion, but with an influx of Hispanics and younger people, it has shifted in the last two elections.